Hello, welcome to a steel video. We are looking today at LC200N. Once again, I have two Spidey chefs here. One was sharpened by me, and the other one was sharpened by Gabe, who runs a little channel called The Home Slice. Two different methods of sharpening this steel. We're going to see which one cuts rope the longest. And if you ask me, that sounds a little bit sciencey. So we best take a quick trip to the knife lab.
Welcome to Smash or Pass, where I say if I would smash or pass these lovely ladies. Smash. Pass. Pretentious. Smash. 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 She is cold and distant and I am here for it. Smash. Pass. Pass. Am not into dudes. Gross. I'm calling Chris Hansen. Am not into dudes. Pass. 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 Pass.
Alrighty, so as I said, two knives that have been sharpened. Both are nice and sharp. This was my edge using the fixed angled sharpening systems. I think this was on the work sharp. No, the work sharp fixed angle, and this is Gabe's dual grit edge. That is where one side of the edge is like a 400 CBN and the other one is a much higher grit. Kind of makes for a sort of toothier, sort of micro serrated tile finish that's got sort of very varied results depending on what steel you use it on, all sorts. But it can get some pretty special performances as seen in the past on some of my other videos. So let's not beat further around the bush and just get straight into some rope cutting. We're going to cut rope until the knives no longer do a paper slice like that. And we're going to probably draw some conclusions about LC200N and just see some cutting, which is kind of what I think everyone likes to see from time to time on this channel. So we'll start with mine first. And look at this, like mine's like the boring old like gray Spidey chef from like probably 2017. You know, ho-hum. Gabe's got this like blue finished one. Look at that. It's gonna go like a bluey finish to it. Much newer and nicer, and yeah, just a fine looking blade all over. We'll cut with mine first, and then we'll cut with his, and we'll see how they go. So LC200N, in my experience, it's like a it's super stainless, so it doesn't rust at all. And the edge performance is kind of like about the same as like a low to mid-tier powdered steel. So, you know, as far as your completely stainless steels went, this was about as good as it got for a fair while. Until obviously Magna Cuts come out, which is sort of almost as stainless, depending on a few more things as LC200N. Because sometimes Magna Cut doesn't seem to be as stainless, depending on who's treated it and how it's gone. Because I've seen Magna Cut tarnish, and I've seen people have sent me photos of their Magna Cut. They cut steak with it and it went discolored. But then I think on the Salt series from Spyderco, which is what I've tested, and I've basically Spyderco Magna Cut and Creeley's Magna Cut as well on his kitchen knife. Well, that's a kitchen knife that I use every day, and I put it in the dishwasher and treat horribly, and it's never rusted on me in my life. So, you know, Magna Cut is virtually as stainless as LC200N, but there have been some examples where it has not been. So never seen LC200N rust from anyone, but then again, it's mainly only ever been on Spydercos that I've had it. Yeah, actually, it's probably only been on Spydercos that I've had it. Anyway, I don't know what to draw from those comments, but I'm kind of just filling in the time as I prepare to do my cut. So let's get going. feeling a little bit rough. I reckon I'll give it another 50 times. That'll be 400, and we'll see how it tests at 400. Still going. Definitely feel the slight bumpiness to it, but I've sharpened this one rather nicely, if I do say so myself. There we go. Jagged cuts, fluffy cuts, torn cuts at 450 from my edge. That's a pretty good result for LC200N. You know, it's definitely in the upper tier of performance that I've ever got from this steel. So very cool, very cool. Alrighty, so this could go either way. Sometimes the dual grit is great for some steels, bad for others. So we will just see. Oh, feels different in the rope immediately. Very toothy and grabby. Interesting, interesting. Definitely feels different. Much more sort of... Still slice the paper, but yeah, just those cuts moment to moment through the rope. Much kind of grabbier. Can't tell what the knife wants to do. That's 100. Can't tell if it wants to push cut straight down or roll cut or whatever. It's very sharp. I can feel that, but just through the rope is a bit of an odd feeling. That's 100. Hand cramp from holding the rope. Ooh. Stopping every 50 because I honestly can't tell. Honestly can't tell. I wouldn't be surprised if it just still really sharp on paper. Really sharp on paper, just the rope is feeling weird. It feels weird to cut rope with. Or just different. Worse though, I like mine better. Sorry, Gabe, but I do. This is like a real. I feel like it just wants to saw. I feel like it wants me to use the entire edge, like a, yeah, like that kind of, yeah, like a real big dramatic cut. But unfortunately, I'm trying to just coop all my testing up into that sort of front inch and a bit of the blade. So, anyway. 200. Still super sharp. How weird. Feels so sharp on that, but quite kind of gummy on this. It appears like it slightly lasts longer than my edge. So I'll give it another 50 cuts and we'll see how it looks. Because that was 450, still cutting through. Slower though. Okay, yep, there we go. Oh, alrighty. So the all two really good results for a start in terms of edge longevity on the LC200N, given that it's a pretty wacky steel, not like most other steels. And I'd like other steels, says LC200N. Mine didn't cut for as long, but it was only a little bit less, almost like a marginal or negligible difference, really, given that I'm like a person doing this, and this isn't like a mechanized system, and there's probably more variables than I can shake an artistic knife at. But yeah, roughly between 400 and 500 cuts, I would say Spyderco's LC200N would happily do for you with a good edge. My edge was pretty good. It's probably one of the better edges I've done. This one here, it's just felt really nice and clean through the rope. Every cut pretty much until the last 50 or so. Then it started to feel a little bit less. This one felt kind of squicky and really rough from the beginning, but it was like an aggressive rough. It's like that classic toothiness that they talk about. Not as pleasant to cut rope with. I'll tell you that much. I would rather, even if this lasted 100 less cuts, I would rather this edge to cut rope with than this edge, even if this one did do it for a little bit longer. That being said, this would be a much better edge for, I'm sure, cutting like longer fibrous things like cardboard, perhaps thick like wharf rope, or what else do we cut that's for real life and not just for YouTube nonsense? God, I can't think of anything. My brain has been ruined by the knife lab. At any rate, interesting food for thought nonetheless. So I thought I would just wrap this up and make for a bit of a overall steel review. I've been using LC200N probably the most, except for maybe K390 in my general pocket knife use. Oh, and I suppose M390, S30V. Those four steels are probably the steels I have the most experience with. M390, S30V are obviously the most highly variable because all types of companies use those steels to various effects. Obviously, you've got your early 2020s line steels on one end with M390, and then you've got your sort of American Spyderco on the other end with your M390. Taiwan Spyderco somewhere in the middle, all sorts. LC200N though is basically only found on Spyderco knives and some small custom makers, but Spyderco knives largely. And as with K390, a few other European makers do use K390, but generally on a production knife, that's why I like Spyderco the most. I got a really pretty savage burn the other day in my comments. Someone said that people who continually buy Spyderco knives are the equivalent of adult Funko Pop collectors, which was admirably savage. But I just figure I'll stick up for myself a little bit, because when you're into this side of the knife hobby, there's in steels and sharpenings and the sort of measured performance, I suppose, which is definitely a non-essential part of the knife hobby to be into. But when that's what tickles your brain specifically, there is no company even close to Spyderco in the steel nerd factor. Not all of their steels are done perfectly, but generally, if you're going to roll the dice with a production company and you want the standard, or at least like the recommended presentation of a steel, Spyderco is going to be the one. And also, if you're going to have, if you get a taste for them slightly more exotic, then Spyderco is also the one for that. And I'd challenge you to declare a production company that's more steel focused than Spyderco. I just don't think there is one. But anyway, so LC200N, I've had years and years of experience of it now. I think my first Spidey Chef was in 2017. I've sharpened it and used it just for ages and ages and ages. My favorite knives have often been in LC200N, my most carried EDC knives. And as such, I have pretty much nothing but good things to say about it. LC200N, in terms of its corrosion resistance, is almost peerless. In terms of its toughness, I think there's more toughness there than is initially assumed. And I think that because it continually does better on my rope cutting board test than perhaps it should be indicated to do from like the Catra card cutting tests. Generally, nitrogen focused steels are not going to hold the edge for as long as the standard carbon focused steels. I think the LC200N has a malleability to it that does help it with cuts into my board. And that, I think my test, and I think a lot of people agree, and some people don't, of course, and that's fine. I think a lot of people agree that my test is sort of pretty indicative of kind of real world use, like how a knife would naturally wear, and usually you're cutting through things into things. And I think the little extra toughness in LC200N, which I've felt in the fixed blades that I've had as well. I've had a limited amount of fixed blades in LC200N too. I think there is a certain toughness there which does help edge stability. And I think that edge stability is just as much as the abrasion resistance, what is tested in my test. So at any rate, one thing I haven't really commented on before with LC200N is sharpenability. It's a really nicely sharpenable steel. I've never had an issue with burr management or anything like that on the fixed systems. And now I'm sharpening freehand. It's absolutely fine. It feels a bit like sharpening a VG10 class steel. You can, if you're not careful and you hit it with your rough stones pretty quickly, you can take it off pretty fast. But that's more of a you issue than the steel issue. But yeah, overall, really, really good results with all forms of sharpening now, especially now I've branched into freehanding a little bit more. And we're really having a good time with that, as you probably tell from my recent output. So at any rate, I would put LC200N in terms of its edge retention for my test somewhere around the S30V mark, or like the upper high quality stainless ingot steels like the 154 CMs. It holds an edge for about the same, somewhere between those two, 154 CM, IWL34, S30V, that lower end, S35VN, that lower end in my test at least. If you're doing pure abrasive cutting, the CATRA data would indicate that it's going to hold a little bit lower than those entry-level stainless powder seals. But for my test, it seems to perform adequately. As you're seeing, sort of getting 400 to 450 to 500 cuts. Most times I do this test with like a good edge on it. Obviously nowhere near K390, which will do 1,000. Nowhere near like M390, which when it's good will do 700 to 800. Magna Cut, again, 700, 800 times in my test. Another steel that's aided by its toughness in my test as well. So look, overall, for a steel that you're not going to pay a huge amount of money for, I mean, the Spidey Chef is a little bit of a different case because it's like a designer knife. But your Salt range of Spydercos in LC200N, if you're going to be saving about $100 less getting them in LC than in Magna Cut, I definitely consider it. Magna Cut will hold its edge for a bit longer. LC200N is debatably more rust resilient. Yeah, definitely both of them are better choices than the H2 steel in my opinion. So yeah, look, overall, it's a steel that I have a real fondness for. I've basically got nothing bad to say about it at all. And now that I've been able to sharpen it up, polish it up really, really well on my stones, making for a really wicked sharp edge, with my sort of average level of freehand sharpening skill, it's just another point in its favor. So LC200N, one of my faves.